Hello awesome neighbors, and welcome to Lynden Informed and our first video under this new name. My name is John Cartwright, and in this series, I've been analyzing one of the current social debates happening in Lynden, Washington, whether to retain or remove fluoride from the city's potable water drinking system. In my first two videos, I covered the voice of the people that spoke at the city council's meeting prior to the mayor's veto, and the justification of the mayor's veto to override the city council's 4-3 vote to remove fluoride, effectively retaining the city's fluoridation policy and practices. In this third episode covering the debate over the fluoride policies and the role of government in medicating its citizens, I plan to analyze Bill Helm's response to the mayor's decision. Bill Helm is the editor of the Lynden Tribune and Ferndale Record, two of local media organizations for the area. The article is titled, "At the Helm. The right decision isn't always popular." One of the very first things that should be noted right off the bat with this article is that it's titled in such a way that shapes the type of argument being made here. A moral argument, or what is absolutely the right thing to do. But I'll come back to the main argument in just a second. The way that I look at Bill's justification is that there's three people involved: Bill, the mayor, and an unknown friend. The first part of Bill's response is typical and expected: a brief historical background of fluoride policies in the US and of that of Lynden, which segues into the remainder of the article. The first point that Bill makes in reference to his debate is that the mayor's decision is not an easy one. I do empathize with the statement that the decision is not easy, especially considering that it involves morally loaded subjects and it also involves change, two things that humans struggle at or tend to avoid. But the degree to what is easy or challenging is subjective, contingent on an individual set of knowledge, skills, abilities, and opportunities, and many other factors like information or conversely information overload. The next statement, however, is that the decision is not a popular decision. This statement would be in direct contradiction to the mayor's #1 justification for retaining fluoride, because according to the mayor, it was a decision based on popularity or majority. But as we also know from my previous analysis, the mayor's fourth argument is the opposite, that citizens largely are not intrinsically motivated to engage in fluoridation, which causes another fundamental contradiction in these positions. After the contradiction, the next fallacious argument is known as star power. Star power is the fallacy of using quotes of popular social figures like celebrities or public officials as a piece to or as the entirety of their evidence and justification. As their justification on what is right, they quoted the mayor's explanation, predominantly his second and third arguments. However, as I discussed in the video on the mayor's analysis, these two arguments involve numerous fallacies, including the missing link fallacy, identity politics, a false comparison, the argument from consequences, and at least two accounts of lying with stats that ultimately did not prove anything at all. And this is what logical fallacies do. They appear as irrefutable justifications and arguments, even perceived by many worthy enough of secondhand quoting, but when tested, they actually don't prove anything at all. From a psychological and communication sciences perspective, in this case, we actually see a lot at work here. For example, the hypodermic needle effect, which would explain the passiveness of uncritically requoting the mayor as if his words immediately injected themselves into Bill's brain as the truth. But what's a little more concerning from the perspective of an industrial organizational psychologist who studies these actors and their agencies is that you would think that communication professionals with communication backgrounds have competency about communication sciences like agenda setting and framing and even hypodermic needle theory, possibly suggesting that it may not be Bill who's being passive here, but that the hope is of a passive audience who does not critically analyze such information before immediately adopting it as the truth. The star power argument, in this case, is also a form of circular reasoning. In circular reasoning, the reasoner begins with what they are trying to end with. For example, making an argument that something or some act is right and true, but only by circling back to quoting the person whose behavior is in question. In other words, the mayor's action is right and true because that's what the mayor said. But the editor didn't demonstrate how the mayor's reasoning is right. Instead, he just quotes the mayor's logic, circling back to his own words as justification. A fourth fallacy occurs, again using star power, when referencing his anonymous dear friend's quote that goes, that doing the right thing is easy, knowing what the right thing is, well, that's the hard part. It's a fallacy because, just like quoting the mayor, using such a quote by itself doesn't prove that the mayor has done the right thing here. And since we don't know the author or their intent, it could very well be another fallacy under the same category known as faulty use of quotes. I could do the same thing Bill does here, quoting any such social figure that used an opposite quote that implied that doing the right thing was actually a cognitively difficult process. And there's psychological reasons to support this position that I've covered, such as changing from traditional practices or old habits, as well as concerns of being isolated or people's perceptions. There are many reasons why doing the right thing is actually very difficult for many people, even if they know what is right. Between the fallacies, there's some more language that's used to add some context to the social debate, and Bill's own attitude towards the mayor's decision, applauding the mayor for what he believes to be right. But again, just because an individual believes they're doing something that's right, it doesn't mean that they actually are. For example, at the city council's meeting following the mayor's veto, city council member Nick Lynden said this.
I want to say here that Mayor Scott, I do respect the fact that you have veto powers, okay? But having said that, and in the light of the lack of including the 400 plus signatures of people and business owners in your determination, you know, that more people wanted to keep fluoride than wanted it removed, it was not accurate. And I implore you to do the righteous thing and rescind your veto. That's my statement.
In his statement, we become informed that when the mayor made his first justification based on popularity, stating that more people were in favor of it than opposed, he actually withheld around 400 plus signatures of businesses and people that opposed it. Critical details that were left out, leading to the claim that the mayor's behavior is not right or righteous. Now, to be clear, it is never appropriate to suppress the truth of the situation, but it certainly does appear to be happening here. The last thing that should be noted is that Bill stated that the most we could expect of them, our elected officials, is that they do what is right. But the problem I have with this statement is that the moment I started bouncing this claim around to citizens that elected these people, they said the least we should expect is that they do the right thing. All right, neighbors, that's it for today. Thank you so much for checking out our first Lynden Informed video and sticking around to the end of it. I just please ask that you like or share, or even subscribe to Lynden Informed if you'd like to see more content like this. Thank you so much, and God bless.